One of the questions that the people often ask is what is the effect of acid on the body? And the answer to that is that it creates symptomologies of disease in the body. And to go through that, first of all, you have a situation where heart disease, for example, can be caused by too much acidity, and for example, you lose your blood serum as that sacrifice to buffer acids, and that can lead to heart problems. Cancer, for example, has been found to exist in a very acid environment. For example, a pH of anywhere between as low as as high as 5.5 rather, even though that's quite acidic, down to about 4.5 in that pH range. Cancer can start to initiate, and it's quite interesting with cancer because Otto Warburg won a Nobel Peace Prize back in 1931 for demonstrating that cancer exists in a very acidic environment, and he went further to actually say that the cancer is different to what you would find with a healthy cell when you have a cancerous cell, in the sense that you have fermenting sugars that are fueling the cancerous cell, when a healthy cell can no longer exist in an acidic environment. And he basically proved that instead of having oxygen as your main fuel, you had a very high environment of hydrogen ions, and that's effectively what the definition of pH is. It's a potential of hydrogen. So the higher the number, the more potential to put hydrogen ions in there. But when you've got a low pH, it means that you don't have much more potential to put hydrogen in there, because there's very little oxygen and there's a lot of hydrogen already in there. And what he found was, in that high hydrogen environment, that the byproduct of the sugar fermentation was lactic acid, and effectively every cancerous cell is bathed in a pool of lactic acid. And so when you have too much acidity in the body, what you're doing is you're creating an environment that can fuel things like cancers, that can also lead to other conditions in the body. But just sort of touching on cancer, the reason why the cells would have this acidity in them is because when you consume foods that are acidic, the body will try to neutralize them and then eventually pass them out of the body. And there's four main ways that the body eliminates acids. One is through respiration, perspiration, urination, and defecation. And they're the four channels that the body eliminates acids in. But sometimes if the body is overworked and it's got too many demands, it's unable to eliminate the acids as effectively as it would like. And so in that case, the body then pushes those acids out into the cells. And because the blood itself can't really operate outside of a very tight pH range. It's 7.365, and if it's any higher or lower than that, you'll actually die. So the body will then push those acids out of the blood very, very quickly, and then into the cells. Now, when you have a look at the body, you'll see that just about all of our cells have a liquid in them that's a salty liquid, and usually it's got a slightly alkaline pH, very similar to the alkalinity of the blood at 7.365. In fact, there was a study that was conducted on human tears, which was done in the early 80s, and they found that the pH of that was around about between 7 and 8 on average. They did a study on spinal fluid, and they found that was within a much tighter tolerance range. I think that there was a study done in the 1960s on that, and the range there was 7.29 to about 7.33. That was a very, very tight tolerance. But you can see that they're all alkaline pHs, and all of our other cells normally, when you're in a healthy state, and say when you're a young baby that doesn't have any health issues, you have a slightly alkaline pH in all of your cells. But what happens is, as you start going through an unhealthy diet where you build up a lot of acids, and also through lifestyle too, because when you have a lack of sleep or too much stress or over-exercise or over-exertion, the body is generating a lot of cortisol and adrenaline, and it's also generating a hydrochloric acid that is being pushed into these cells and creating an acid environment. And so certainly cancer is one symptomology of having too much acidity, but that happens much after earlier problems start manifesting. For example, diabetes, that is an example of too much acidity. Now, there is a lot of controversy about diabetes, and a lot of people think that you can't reverse type 2 diabetes, and certainly not type 1 diabetes. In fact, they say that once you've damaged your pancreas, you can't repair that. Well, we've actually found that that's not the case. Well, certainly with type 2 diabetes, there have been people treating that for many decades. People like Charlotte Gerson, who's the daughter of Max Gerson. She's been treating lots of people with type 2 diabetes, and they often ask her, they say, well, how many days does it take to get a person off their insulin and effectively not showing the symptoms of type 2 diabetes? And she says typically about 4 to 5 days. And what does she do to do that? She puts them onto a diet mostly raw, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds. And that alkalinity that diet provides then enables the pancreas to then start producing not just insulin, but sodium bicarbonate. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the pancreas has a number of functions. Yes, it does produce insulin, which is the hormone that attaches to the glucose, which enables it then to enter into the cells and be used as energy. But the pancreas also produces what people call enzymes, which is effectively sodium bicarbonate. And it produces sodium bicarbonate because the food as it leaves the stomach has to be increased in pH. It needs to be not only neutralized, but it needs to be elevated in pH. It needs to be alkalized effectively, because the intestinal pH typically should be between 8.2 and 8.4 pH in that range. Some people have said it's as high as 8.8, people like Michael Klaper, but from a lot of the studies I've looked at, it's mostly 8.2 to 8.4 is the range of a healthy intestinal tract. And what the pancreas does is it increases that alkalinity. Now, if a person is having a diet that has got way too much acidity, then you've got an environment where the pancreas is overworking. It has to produce a huge amount of sodium bicarbonate to elevate the pH. And if it doesn't have the necessary ingredients that are available in order to produce the sodium bicarbonate, in particular salt, plus water, plus carbon dioxide, and it uses those to effectively create sodium bicarbonate, and the byproduct of that is hydrochloric acid, which is, as most people know, is in great abundance in the gastral pits of the stomach. So the sodium bicarbonate is necessary to neutralize those acids, and then so the food then is quite alkaline as it's been broken down at that point, as it enters into the duodenum and then into the rest of the upper intestine and then down into the lower intestine, where the colloids, the nutrients then and the elements then get absorbed through picked up by the intestinal villi and absorbed through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream. So diabetes is a situation where you have too much acidity, which is causing an overworking of the pancreas. And people like even Gabriel Cousens have had enormous success on a raw vegan diet, getting type 2 reversals. He had a DVD which came out only a few years ago called Raw for 30 Days. And we had a number of people that were type 2 diabetics off their medication and effectively looks like cured of type 2 diabetes. And he even had one person that thought that they were a type 1 diabetic, but later they discovered, a type 2 diabetic rather, but later they discovered it was really a type 1 diabetic, and that person looks like they've regenerated their own pancreas. Robert O. Young also claims to have I think the first clinical example of a type 1 diabetes reversal with a 5-year-old boy. And he put him on a very alkaline diet, and he basically said, just imagine your pancreas just like a squirt gun squirting sodium bicarbonate, but you're in a situation where unless you alkalize your body, you're not going to be able to get it to regenerate and do that. And this child basically got onto that diet and was able to get his pancreas going and started having effectively a really healthy life from then on. His older brother, which was 8 years of age, had type 2 diabetes, and he was able to reverse that as well. So diabetes is certainly an example of a condition that is due to too much acidity. Then you have other conditions as well, like osteoporosis. Yeah, osteoporosis is quite interesting because a lot of people that have studied the way the body works know that the bones and teeth are in a constant state of change. They're either building the calcium levels and phosphorus, or they're depleting the calcium, and it's doing that in response to the conditions in the body. If someone is too acidic, it is very common that calcium will be dissolved from the teeth or from the bones, so that it can then get into the bloodstream and neutralize the acids, especially if you have too many acids coming through your diet, through fermenting sugars or through fermenting proteins. So those acids need to be neutralized rapidly, and that's how the body does it. And so osteoporosis is effectively a causing of the porosity of the bones, and that porosity is like turning your bones into a sponge material effectively. And there have been countless studies that actually showed that the more acidic foods that you have, the more osteoporosis that you get. And what is particularly interesting is that, we're all told, for example, that we need to have plenty of dairy products in order to have strong bones and teeth. And yet you'd be surprised to know that around the world, in the countries that consume the most amount of dairy, like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United States, the Scandinavian countries, they have the highest osteoporosis rates. Whereas the countries that consume virtually no dairy at all, or none, like a lot of the Asian countries like Vietnam and Cambodia and Thailand and Burma, like the Bantu in Africa, they have some of the strongest bones and have no rates of osteoporosis at all. And in fact, the Bantu have got some of the strongest bones that they've ever tested, and they consume 1/10 the dietary calcium of what the average Australian or the average American consumes. Now, many years ago, Harvard University decided to investigate this phenomenon themselves. They had the 13-year EPIC nurses study. And in that study, they looked at nurses for all different types of conditions. But one of the things they looked at was bone strength. And they had two groups of people. One, nurses that were drinking 2 glasses of milk a day or more, and the other group that wasn't consuming any milk at all. And what they found was that after that period, that the ones that had the higher bone tensile strength was the group that wasn't consuming the milk, and the ones that were consuming the milk had the weaker bones and had the lower bone tensile strength. And it was concluded that the main reason for that was, yes, there is certainly calcium in milk, but there's also other components as well. For example, there's a very strong sugar in there, which is lactose. And lactose in the intestine and in the bloodstream will ferment into lactic acid. And lactic acid is a very strong acid that the body will try and eliminate whenever it can by sacrificing alkaline buffers, in particular calcium from the bones and teeth. It's also got casein. About 87% of the protein in milk is casein, and that is a very acidic protein, and that needs to also be neutralized as well. And there's a whole lot of other components in the milk that are acidic, and so that's the reason why osteoporosis is a condition of too much acidity as well.